Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, the road trip edition. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined as always by Joe Payne from the Las Vegas Advisor. Tonight we're going to recap the Las Vegas Golden Knights, not the Las Vegas. They're not the Vegas Golden Knights road trip. 6 games, 10 nights, 4 wins, 2 losses. Joe, all in all, I'd say it's a pretty successful road trip. You know, most of the time, if they a 500 road trip is a positive road trip. They went 4-2. There was an awful lot of adversity that the Golden Knights went through. What's your biggest takeaway from the road trip?
Winning 2 games in St. Louis, which they have never done before, and won without having to go to overtime. They slayed a dragon in St. Louis. The only dragon left as far as the Vegas Golden Knights and on the road is Minnesota, which has been a thorn in their side also. But they had 2 good games in St. Louis. Fleury was outstanding again, even though he played back-to-back. But the captain of St. Louis came out and said that even though they lost 2 games to the Vegas Golden Knights, he thinks his team is better than the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, they're the better team. And I'm 110 pounds and a fucking supermodel. Because let me tell you, in the first game, the Golden Knights had 35 more shot attempts in St. Louis, even though St. Louis won in a shootout. In the second game, the Golden Knights had 31 more shot attempts than St. Louis. And in the third game, the St. Louis Blues got outscored 4-0, and they lost 5-1. So if St. Louis is the better team, then I don't know, Cindy Crawford. So.
Well,
yeah.
they didn't get outscored 4-0. It got a little dicey there. It was 3-1, and then they had a two man penalty that they had to kill off. And I was thinking, oh no, here we go again. St. Louis is going to make this comeback. But Fleury, and then during the penalty, I believe it was Nosek broke his stick, so it was 5-on-3, and Nosek didn't have a stick.
Didn't the Golden Knights score 4 goals in the third period and win 5-1 last night?
Yeah, but they never scored. Oh, you're talking about that they scored 4 goals in the third period to go 5-1?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I know. I understand that, but St. Louis scored in the third period too.
Oh, they did?
Remember, it was 1-0 after 2 periods.
Okay. Here's the bottom line. St. Louis isn't the better. St. Louis isn't the better team, and Vegas outplayed them in the game that they lost. And listen, he's full of shit. That's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. In the 3 games, the Vegas Golden Knights, up until the point of the first game, I thought the St. Louis game that they lost was arguably the best game that they had played all season. Even though they lost, it was that whimsical 5-4 game that they had been getting involved in most of the time. But no, and I'll remind you that Drew Doughty in year 1 said that the Los Angeles Kings were the better team, and there was no way that they were going to lose the playoff series against the Golden Knights. And we all know how that one went. So enough of pronouncements from other teams' captains.
Yeah, for a 4-game sweep, I remind you of.
So
with with Fleury throwing 2 shutouts.
So yeah, yes, it was important that they win in St. Louis. I imagine that the leadership group, there was probably some serious talking to after the 2 games in Minnesota, because that was not their best couple of nights of hockey. Minnesota, for some reason, is their kryptonite. They won 2 games in Vegas. Wins are wins, points are points. But in St. Paul, for some reason, they just don't play well.
And that's why I thought that the 2 victories in St. Louis really was like the icing on the cake for this road trip, because even if they got a split there, a 3-3 road trip, as you said, is usually decent. But this year, with all the games being divisional games, a 4-2 road trip is head and shoulders above a 3-3 road trip.
especially when you factor in the adversity. They got
Oh yeah,
kicked
they
out
had
of the,
tons
they
of
got
yeah,
kicked out of
tons
their
of
hotel on a game day. I mean, they got not they got kicked out of a Waldorf Astoria on a game day. They had 2 back-to-backs. Their goalie had a positive COVID test, and it turned out to be a false positive. They lost Alex Pietrangelo. They lost William Carrier. Now, yes, they got Braden McNabb back, and that turned out to be a really good thing, because as much as we've kind of given Braden McNabb a hard time that he's been a little bit slow, and we may have compared him to a recently retired Vegas Golden Knights defenseman a couple of times, when he was paired with another young Golden Knights defenseman, suddenly we've seen an awful lot more offense from young Mr. Coughlin, because he has a very good, sound defensive partner when he's paired with Braden McNabb. What do you think about that?
And let's talk about Braden McNabb making an absolute statement, I believe, on his first shift back, where he just annihilated the player. I don't know how that player recovered from that hit.
I think that guy he came back in the game, but he might not still know where he is. That was, and listen, I'm a Red Wings guy. He Cronwalled that guy.
Yeah.
He just absolutely 100% Cronwalled that young man. And it was a thing of beauty.
And you know what was strange? The Minnesota, I'm not sure which Minnesota player, dropped his gloves to fight McNabb, and McNabb paid no attention to it. Usually, when a player drops his gloves, he incurs a penalty for delay a game. But there was no penalty called on the hit. There was no penalty called on the Minnesota. I'm not sure, because it was a pretty big scrum at the bench, so I'm not sure which. And the camera kind of panned away. But when they went back, the gloves and the stick was still on the ice. But there was no penalty call, which I found really strange. I mean, there were a couple of questionable calls over the weekend. The one with the puck over the glass. Now the referee said, well, we couldn't decide whether the puck would have cleared the glass to begin with. I don't know. That's kind of strange.
Listen, you know what? I think that's just one of those things that's a COVID call. And I'm willing to forgive him for that. I'm not willing to forgive him for the 8 men on the ice.
Oh my God!
That one,
not
and
7, 8.
No. This is too many men on the ice.
Not enough.
But yeah, and I'm not willing to forgive him for the cross check to Chandler Stevenson that led to that going on. So yeah, there was some questionable officiating. The one with the puck over the glass, with the netting there and the not real discernible line. Listen, that's a sign of the times for right now. So I'll give him a pass on that.
Yeah, but you can't give him a pass, Eddie. I know the game is fast, and I know they got forced to buys, but how does someone not see 8 players on the ice?
Yeah, listen, come on. That one's completely unforgivable. There's no excuse. And I'm sure that in the post game, the league office probably showed him a picture and said, "So what do you got to say about
what's
this
up with that?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what were you guys looking at?
What do you got for us for this one?
Yeah.
On the injury front, what do we know? Nothing.
Hold on. Wait, Eddie. When did we ever know anything on the injury front?
All I know is Pete DeBoer put on the best set of tap dancing shoes we've ever heard in trying to tell us about Pietrangelo. The foreseeable future, but we're not sure when, but it might be week to week. We don't know anything. We're all going to bet on what? A fractured wrist or a hairline fracture, something like that?
Well, Bob McKenzie, who is known as the godfather of hockey, on intermission in the Minnesota game, he said, the Vegas Golden Knights haven't said it's a hairline fracture, but they also haven't said it wasn't a hairline fracture or was. So Yeah. What
Well,
what
there
he's
you go.
trying to say is that, well, here's what he's saying. I know from my sources that it's a hairline fracture, but they're not saying it yet. But and I even wrote when DeBoer said when both Pietrangelo and Stone were injured in that game, he said, "Oh, Stone, we just could have came back, but based upon the score of the game and the schedule, we kept him out." And I wrote, "Is that really the truth?" And sure as shit, Stone was out the next game. So you're never going to get good information or valuable information that you can hang your hat on, so to speak, from this team. And I understand where they're coming from. You know, this is the George McPhee way of doing business. I think, and I read somewhere where he got burnt years ago by a reporter, and so he's got a rock in his shoe with the media. So he gives the media nothing. He gives us nothing. And you know what?
Fine.
It's his team. It's his team. You know, we dance around the cones, whatever we have to do. You know, we try to bring as much good information as possible whenever we know. Sometimes we have to speculate. Like I speculated that was bullshit about Stone, that he was going to come back for based upon the score, and he was out the next game. And Pietrangelo was like, the foreseeable future, we're not really sure. And there's talk about he's out at least 4 to 6 weeks.
Well, here's the one injury that sort of transitions us into a really interesting topic, and that's Will Carrier. The injury we don't know enough about, but the response is something that's really interesting. And what it leads me to want to bring up is Peter DeBoer continues to just show us what an outstanding hockey coach he is. The injury to Carrier forces juggling, more bottom six juggling. He continues to juggle Waugh, Kolasar, the return of Nosek off the COVID list. And finally, he makes another little shuffle with Cody Glass and Nosek. And all of a sudden, what happens? The third line starts putting up points with Waugh, Nosek, and Alex Tuch. And whatever little juggles that Pete DeBoer, he just keeps tinkering. He keeps tinkering and tinkering. And this is all because of the Carrier injury. The third line is now suddenly becoming a little bit more formidable and putting up points on the board. Now, Cody Glass, I don't think he was a healthy scratch. I think he was a press box victim because he didn't have a very good game, and Nosek came off and finally got his sea legs underneath him, and he got pushed from the fourth to the third line, and there was some instant chemistry between him, Waugh, and Tuch. And, you know, Patrick Brown came in last night, and he had a pretty solid game for his first game. He had a really good game last year in his only game with the Golden Knights and scored a goal. And him and Kolasar and Reeves, they had a pretty solid game. And young Cody Glass is having a tough time outside of the power play, really keeping his place in the lineup. That's kind of my take on it.
Cody Glass only has 3 goals. They're all 3 power play goals. He has not scored 5-on-5 the whole entire season. I'm not sure if Cody Glass gets back into this lineup unless there's an injury. I got to be honest with you. I think if the fourth line can start to gel, Cody Glass is going to be a yellow taxi cab guy.
Listen, that kid is not a bust. He's absolutely not a bust. I'm not saying that. I'm not going to say it. But you know what? He might be squeezed if the third line keeps producing. I mean, Nick Waugh's had a couple of really, really good games. He's heavy on the puck in the O zone, and he is super responsible in the defensive end, right? And Pete DeBoer challenged Ryan Reeves. before the first
As
St.
far
Louis
as the,
before the first St. Louis game, and Ryan Reeves posterized a half a dozen St. Louis Blues, starting with the very first shift of the game. And that whole thing about they were sort of chasing they were chasing the game. Well, that's over with now. The Ryan Reeves that they signed to a 2-year, $3.5 million deal. Well, he's back now, and they're hitting people again. And the young kid that I like the most right now, I think, even though he hasn't scored a goal and he's had a dozen and a
oh
half.
my God, how has he not
some,
scored?
That young man, I don't know. They're gonna have to loosen the grip on that young man's stick. Keegan Colasar, he's got to score a goal, but he's playing great. He's showing great poise in the offensive zone, right? He's being a force on the puck. He's showing great poise, but yeah, that young man has got to pot a goal here pretty soon. I feel terrible for him.
Yeah, right? And he stood up for Ryan Reeves, which is like somebody standing up for Ryan Reeves. What's that about?
Right.
And if you read his lips in the penalty box, he says, "I got your back." He told Reeves, "I got your back," and they both smile. But here's the point I want to make. Cody Glass will not flourish between Reeves and Patrick Brown. That's not a spot for him.
No.
They either got to find a different spot for him. You're actually gonna ruin him psychologically if you put him on that fourth line, because his style of play is not how they play. Okay.
No, he has to be a top six. He has to be a top six center.
Cody Glass is a finesse player, and you can't play him with the two meat grinders.
No,
it's just not going to work. It's not going to work. He's going to be lost there, and it's actually going to, in my opinion, it's going to slow his progress down if you play him on the fourth line.
But unfortunately, when he was between Wah and Alex Tuck, Tuck was the only one that produced. Right?
Well, if you remember correctly, Glass actually looked good when he played between Stone and Pacioretty.
Yeah, but you ain't bumping Chandler Stevenson off that spot.
No, not at this point. But the point is, you can see that Glass will flourish if you give him skilled wingers. Okay.
Yes.
No knock on Carrier, Patrick Brown, or Reeves, but they're not skilled forwards. So Glass is going to go in reverse on that fourth line. He's just not. It's just not going to work. It's going to make his future with the Vegas Golden Knights. It's going to be put in jeopardy. He is their number one overall pick. So
yeah, but isn't this messing with his head just as much?
I'm not sure. They're players in the NHL have huge egos, and not playing and sitting up in the press box just eats away at them. A lot of times a coach will sit a player just to kind of motivate him, you don't buy that?
I hear that, right? I think that's horseshit.
Really?
I think, you know what? Who did Minnesota bench?
Parisi.
A couple. Yeah, it was Zach Parisi, right?
Yeah.
He came back and did nothing. Because you know
what
happened?
You can't pay a guy $9 million and you can bench him one game to say, "Hey, Zach, I really didn't like your effort," but you can't justify it. Only a coach like Tortorella can get away with shit like that. And from what I understand, I hear he's got one foot out the door and the other one's on the banana peel in Columbus. So,
well, how many jobs he been fired from? Listen, you know what? I don't.
Everyone he's had.
Right, exactly. But you know what? I don't think a night off, because you know what? They still get a game check. It ain't an unpaid. It ain't an unpaid suspension.
And I understand that the money, they still get paid whether they play or not. But like I said, they have ego. They want to play. They don't want to
right.
sit.
But situationally, it doesn't. All of those considerations aside, when they put him in the situation, the best situation that they have for him, he didn't produce. The best situation they have for him, the best available situation that they have for Cody Glass is Nick Waugh and Alex Tuck. Alex Tuck is second on the team with 12 goals, right? Nick Waugh is the grinder of that line. He's the retrieval guy on the dump and retrieve guy. He's the big body, right? And Glass is supposed to be the playmaker of it, and he has no goals. And Waugh is not yet developed into an offensive guy in the NHL. So the most optimal situation that the Golden Knights have for Cody Glass, he hasn't produced. He's not going to produce between any two wingers on the meat grinders line. And Chandler Stevenson and Pacioretty and Stone, listen, there isn't a scenario where those three are going to go so cold that you're going to move them. You can't tinker with that chemistry. Just look at the numbers.
No, not at all.
So
the first two lines, even though DeBoer was shaking him up, he's pretty gone back to the Marchessault, Carlson, Riley, Smith line, and the Stone, Pacioretty, and Stevenson line. And the third and fourth line, we're tinkering. But like you said before, it seems no matter what he does, he hits a jackpot with.
Yeah, it's so funny because we should wrap it up with just remember, when they fired Gallant and the knives were out and people were calling for scalps and they brought in the enemy and just the absolute hatred. And you and I were like, he's a pretty good coach, but let's see. And, he was always so salty because he was the enemy. But now we watch his press conference and every once in a while they let us ask a question. And every time somebody asks him a question, he says hello to us, right?
I think that is so, it's refreshing.
Right? And sure, he lies to us a fair share of times, but he's the head coach and he has to keep what goes on in his room with his team and the organization to a fair amount of time to himself. But you know what? He's a fucking good hockey coach, man. And yes,
he is.
Yes, Bill Foley has given him an awful lot of resources and spent every single dollar available to him to bring a Stanley Cup to the Vegas Golden Knights. And, God willing, and the creek don't rise, we get a chance to have a parade down the Las Vegas Strip. But, every button that Pete DeBoer has pushed certainly seems to be working. And he seems to have his finger on the pulse of the team and know what it takes to get the best out of those guys. And, the road trip had some bumps, and it had some bumps off the ice and it had some bumps on the ice. And they still have an ass load of work to do on the power play, which is dismal. And, but
you're being kind, dismal.
Right. But listen, they're on the right track. They're leading the division. They've got their favorite team, the San Jose Sharks, coming in for a couple of games tomorrow night. I hope that the new 20% fan limit at T-Mobile Arena will increase to 50% soon. Maybe people will be holding up signs tomorrow night, that they'll loan money to Evander Kane. That would be a great. I mean, listen, if you guys can't troll Evander Kane tomorrow night and Wednesday night, I mean, there's nothing more free and easy than to lay it into that cat tomorrow night. But we're basically.
I think that Don't Be Broke and Payday Loans should probably take ads out on the game on Monday.
I mean, come on. If you can't swing for this guy's ankles tomorrow and Wednesday night on his first trip to the Fortress, you're just missing out. but we're close to the halfway mark. The Golden Knights are leading the division. They've come through a really tough stretch of 6 games in 10 days. They've overcome some adversity. Hopefully, Robin Lehner is close to being on the mend and rejoining the team, so Marc Andre Fleury can get some days off, because 14 starts in 16 games is certainly not tenable continuing on in the stretch. And I think they're in as good a place as you could possibly be through, 25 games? Could you really ask for anything more?
And actually, there's one point I want to make, since you said something about DeBoer pushing all the right buttons. Even when he pushed the wrong button, it still worked out. His decision to kind of put Fleury on the bench in Edmonton has resurged and given Fleury a reason. I mean, Fleury he's pretty much turned his career around, because the last 2 years, his career has been on somewhat of a decline. Man, he is just playing. I guess the word is phenomenal. He's just playing so good, and I think he's basically saying to DeBoer, let me show you why you made a mistake in Edmonton. That you should have, at the minimum, given us equal playing time, because the playing time was heavily weighted in Robin's favor, which kind of forced him to give him a 5-year, $25 million contract. And they did, and according to Brian on Channel 3 News here, he says that they actively were trying to move Fleury over the summer, and they got no takers. But I will tell you this, if they would try to move him now, there'd be a line at McCrimmon and McPhee's door right now, because there are a couple, and especially in the Canadian division, there are a couple of teams, I'm not going to mention Edmonton or Calgary, that could probably use it. that could use a goaltender of half the skill level of Fleury, because winning 7-5 and 8-6 is just not going to get you anywhere.
Well, that door is closed, and the Golden Knights are going with $12 million in salary cap till the end
all the way through.
All this year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no movement. No. Neither one.
No. Wait.
Okay.
What? Are you out of your mind?
Well, I'm not out of my mind.
Are you out of your mind?
You and I both had this conversation, and we've had this conversation for the last couple of months. Is Fleury gone? Are they going to have to get rid of him? And you also said he played his last game as a Vegas Golden.
They wouldn't take the Lord Jesus Christ back and trade for Fleury right now. Are you
kidding
me?
I know that, but you couldn't have said that in September, October, November, and December.
No, it's the flip-flop. It's the flip now. It's now Fleury's net to lose. In the beginning, it was they're going to play 50-50, and then we're going to make a decision down the road. Now the pressure is clearly on Lehner to earn his playing time. And
so,
no, the
so
decision's
are you saying
made.
that? Okay, so are you saying that when Lehner returns, they go back? They don't go back to the one game?
Oh, I think that they're going to give Lehner a good amount of playing time, because they abused Fleury for the last 16 games. But they're not going to let Fleury go cold.
Okay, so here's my question to you then. Do they give Lehner 2 and 3 starts in a row, or do they go back to game A, game B, game C, game D?
It might be A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C. But what I'm saying is there ain't going to be no movement in the goal. I don't know how they're going to chop it up, but neither one of those two guys is leaving Vegas this year.
No, okay, but here's something that, and they did the salary cap juggle last year, where they were sending guys down, even though they really sent down. Well, but Trangelo being out now, they're saving some money on the cap space. It's kind of deferred. It doesn't go apply.
They're not. Petrangelo's not on long-term IR.
I think he will be though, and I think if they think they're missing a piece to complete their run, this parade that you've been chirping about for the last year and a half, they may put him on. Don't be rolling your eyes over there, Mr. Rifkin. By the way, you look like you lost some weight, by the way. So
Thank you
you're
very
looking
much.
good. Yeah, I just want to make that notice. But if they think they need a piece come the trade deadline, they may in fact put Pietrangelo on LTIR to save some cap space that they might have. They don't have much room, but they might have a little room. If they move a contract, they might move a contract to bring somebody. I mean, there's rumblings that there's a lot of trouble in Buffalo, and Jack Eichel might be on the move. So who knows?
Jack Eichel's going on LTIR. Your guy McKenzie, the guru of things, said he's out for
the Godfather. The Godfather.
The Godfather, the witch doctor, the Godfather. He said he's out for the foreseeable future with an upper body.
Okay.
Listen,
but the rumors that the Buffalo is going to be having a fire sale pretty soon.
As they should. They've been a dumpster fire for the last 10 years.
Actually, there was hope for them this year, prior to the season beginning. Yeah, but
there's been hope for me for decades. What's your point?
Speaking of hope, how hopeful were you when Detroit played Tampa Bay and actually beat them?
Listen, it was the last game of a 6-game road trip, and they were looking forward to getting back home to the sun. Detroit was up 5-1 with 5 minutes to go in the game, and Tampa made it 5-4. And my father, 82 years old, called me on the phone. He said, "Edward, if they lose this game, I'm going to shoot my fucking television set." My 82-year-old father.
If that happens, you need to videotape that and get that on YouTube.
I know, but no. Here, back to the goaltending situation. Who knows how they're going to sort it out? But they can't. 14 games in 16. They can't do that. Robin Leonard's got to get some. It's got to get some NHL time, right? Fleury's a couple of times in the post game made mention of having tired legs, right?
And you've never heard him say that.
Do not for 1 second overlook that comment. Do not for 1 single second overlook that comment. And Pete DeBoer will not overlook that comment. And that tells me that when Robin Leonard is healthy, it may go 2-1 a couple times, but Fleury has earned the net for when it gets to be crunch time. And Leonard has to now earn the spot.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. We'll close with this then. When you said don't overlook Fleury's comment that sometimes, he said, I think on 2 different occasions that his legs were tired.
Yeah.
What do you think he's trying to say there? What's the underlying term?
Nothing. I think he's just telling the truth. Listen, that cat doesn't have any reason to be playing subliminal bullshit hint games. I think he was asked a question, and I think he gave his agent, Fleury's agent, is the piece of shit guy with the underlying and the head games and everything else like that. Marc Andre Fleury was asked a question, and he's answered the question, and I think he answered the question absolutely truthfully. And on the 2 times that you and I have heard it in the post-game pressers, when he said that, I think he was telling the truth. I think there's absolutely nothing to read into it other than he said on a couple of occasions he's had tired legs.
But in the previous 3 years, he's always said, I want to play all the time.
But he's also never had a stretch like this in his career. Stormy said it's never been more than 7 or 8 in a row.
Okay.
So no, I don't read anything into it other than there's never been a compressed schedule like this in the NHL, and there's never been any sort of circumstance like this. The absolute abnormality of all of it has led it to be what it is. And he deserves some rest. He shouldn't be
and they got another back-to-back coming up next week also.
He shouldn't even he shouldn't even be practicing. It should be Thompson and Ferguson and Dansk, right? He should be coming out for the morning skates and some stretching and stuff like that. And if he feels like he wants to practice once in a while, right? He should be on the Allen Iverson practice schedule. That's what I think. Right? Until Leonard gets
you do come up with some dandies, I'll give you that.
Until Leonard gets healthy and everything sort of balances itself out. It's okay if he goes on the Allen Iverson plan, as far as I'm concerned. That's it. We're done. Joe has a dinner date. Wish him luck. He's going to South Point for dinner, but we don't plug anybody because nobody gives us money. But below this is a thing to subscribe. We really do have to get to 100 so you can find us on YouTube much easier. So please link and subscribe. We'll come back after the San Jose pair and before the team heads off to Los Angeles. Hockey nights in Vegas. Thanks a lot for watching us, and we'll be back in a couple of days. Have a great night, folks. We're out of here.
Take care.